Welcome to the Spokane housing market update. It's September 2023. I missed last month's market update, but I'm back to a normal schedule now, bringing you the news and data that you need to know about the national and local real estate markets. Please excuse the wall behind me. I have just moved into a new fixer-upper project that you can check out in the link at the top of this video if you're interested. My name is Phil Wells. I'm a Spokane real estate agent who likes to keep up to date with the market, and I want you to be as informed as possible too. The housing market and the news around is extremely loud, so here on this video I'm just going to give you the facts to enable you to form your own opinion, because that's so important. We're going to start by getting a national picture of what's been going on. We'll look at national pending home sales, mortgage rates, mortgage application rates, and national median prices. We'll then compare and contrast what's been happening nationally to what's been going on locally, so we can get a really good picture of what the market looks like in September 2023. We'll then go over some news articles that have stood out to me this month too.
Go and lay down. You're the worst. You're the worst film producer in the world.
At the very end, I wanted to go over my experience that I had this month leasing a property, because I was honestly blown away at the response I had to my listing. So let's get into it. Looking first at national pending home sales. Contract signings were, quote, elevated in July. They were up 0.9% on a month-over-month basis, which is what you'd expect. July is the height of the summer selling season after all. Year-over-year contract signings declined 14%, which sounds bad, and it does represent 26 consecutive months of year-over-year sales declines. But it should be noted that most of those declines have been in the 15 to 30% range. This latest 14% decline does mark a little bit of a pickup in terms of sales, and hopefully that trend continues. Here's what the National Association of Realtors chief economist had to say about July's pending home sales numbers. A small gain in contract signings shows the potential for further increases in light of the fact that many people have lost out on multiple home buying offers. Jobs are being added and thereby enlarging the pool of prospective home buyers. However, rising mortgage rates and limited inventory have hindered the possibility of buying for many. So overall, generally pretty positive news when it comes to pending home sales. They are up on a month-over-month basis, and while they're down on a year-over-year basis, it does seem that that trend is starting to turn around and sales are beginning to pick up. Let's move on and look at mortgage rates. Obviously, the majority of people buy homes using a mortgage, so to keep an eye on mortgage rates gives us a really good idea of what buyer demand is likely to do. Sticking with July for a second so we can really analyze that period in time. Mortgage rates at the start of July were at 7.03%, and by the end of July they were at 7.04%. So a relatively steady month there in terms of mortgage rates for July. The most recent rates that I could see have climbed to 7.21%. Those are high rates. I do hear people occasionally mention that they bought a home back when rates were 15%, and there's nothing to complain about here. The facts are, though, that home prices as a percentage of income are radically more now than they were back in the 1980s when we last had very high interest rates. Here's an article where you can learn a little more about this if you're interested. So, as the economist in the previous section mentioned, low inventory and affordability issues has definitely hindered the possibility of buying for many people. Let's stick with mortgages and look at mortgage application rates. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's how many people are actually applying for mortgages. This sounds relatively boring, but it is a leading indicator rather than lagging data that we've just been looking at. So we can, in theory, peer into the future of what's going to be happening with pending home sales by looking at these figures. So let's see what July looks like from the perspective of the Mortgage Bankers Association to really complete the analysis on that period of time. I'm looking for a correlation between mortgage rates and the rates of applications. I want to know that the basics of supply and demand are still applying as they should, and there's no strange resistance in the market there that we need to look at. In July, we saw really mild swings in terms of mortgage application rates, 1% either side on a week-to-week basis throughout the entire month. That matches up with what mortgage rates were doing, remaining flat themselves throughout the month of July. Bringing us up to date, despite the highest mortgage rate since December 2000, mortgage applications actually rose. I honestly believe that increasingly people are just looking at these mortgage rates as something that's ridiculous, that they're not going to have to live with for very long before they can refinance, and just buying anyway these days. Now let's look at national median home prices, because it's something that in my view has been acting contrary to how they should be acting. As that demand comes down, you expect home prices to come down, but they just haven't. In some circumstances, they've even been rising. It just goes to show that the real estate market isn't driven by facts and logic. A large portion of it is how people feel. People want to feel secure in an asset, and no one feels secure in a declining asset. National median home prices in July were $421,000, which is actually up 1.3% on a year-over-year basis. To me, that's remarkable. Everything is pointing to home prices beginning to fall, but they're just not. So now let's summarize the national market. The big news is that after 26 consecutive months of year-over-year sales declines, we are beginning to see some improvements in terms of pending home sales. Mortgage rates continue to climb, which continues to stifle buyer demand. Those that are still in the market are finding themselves looking at much less desirable homes, or are just checking out the market entirely until interest rates are more favorable. Despite this, national median home prices continue to climb. It's not like people can offset their higher mortgage rate with a lower purchase price. No, they're just paying more for homes. So if you're a buyer and you can afford the home, you can buy the home. You'll likely get a contract on the home that you're looking for, unless it's one of those new listings in a particularly desirable area or a particularly desirable style of home. So in some circumstances, you'll encounter some competition, but for the most part, you'll have a pretty easy time as a buyer in this market. If you're a seller, then you might find yourself in a situation where your home's been on the market for a few weeks and you're wondering what you or your agent is doing wrong. Chances are you're not doing anything wrong at all. The market is just difficult for sellers right now. If your home doesn't sell right away, it's likely to stay on the market for quite a while. Remember that quote that I read out earlier from that economist mentioning that affordability is a real concern for buyers right now. It costs around 50% more in terms of monthly mortgage payments to own a home this year than it did only 18 months ago. So you can see the kind of market conditions that you're trying to sell in. Let's move on and look at the Spokane market and see how it compares to the national market. Sales were down 19.4% year over year, which is worse than the national year-over-year decrease of 14%. So maybe a few questions there as to why Spokane sales aren't picking up at the same rate as the rest of the country. Maybe there's just a little bit of a lag there, who knows, but it's something to watch. For the most part, Spokane has been tracking the rest of the nation in terms of sales pretty closely for the last 18 months or so we don't want to start seeing Spokane lag behind the rest of the nation. Median home prices are up on a year-over-year basis to $420,000, which is the second month in a row of year-over-year increases, which comes off the back of half a year of consecutive price declines here in Spokane. Remember what I was saying before about stubborn prices? That's certainly true in Spokane. Even in the face of massive mortgage rate hikes, these prices aren't going anywhere. Median home prices are also right in line with the rest of the nation, so to those that say that Spokane is overpriced, statistically, it's not. Inventory is up to a 2-month supply. That's very low. 4 to 6 months is where we want to be for a truly bounced market. However, I haven't really ever seen Spokane have that sort of a bounced market. So a 2-month supply for Spokane is actually pretty good. New listings are down 12% on a year-over-year basis, which must reflect sellers seeing other sellers having a difficult time and just opting out of the market for now. You can see days on market of 13 days. That's not a huge amount of time, and it shows that homes are being sold. That really doesn't reflect the homes that never sell and the listings just expire and then they go off the market. I can tell you that is happening in pretty large numbers here in Spokane. This means then that overall Spokane is tracking the rest of the nation pretty closely and Spokane isn't behaving like an outlier. So you can expect what I said when I summarized the national market as it relates to buyers and sellers to be true of the Spokane market too. You can also expect national stories about the housing market to trickle down and impact Spokane in just the same way. Now I just wanted to draw your attention to a few news articles that have stood out to me this month. As always, there's a lot going on, so I'm just going to go over the basics of these articles. If you want to read them in their entirety, there's a link to these articles in the description to this video. For a long time, we've been worried about inflation. Now, though, there are rumblings about the risk of deflation. This article mentions real estate prices crashing, but the article only specifically addresses commercial real estate, not residential. But it would be naive to assume that residential real estate wouldn't catch a cold if commercial real estate got sick. I just don't want you to panic is all I'm saying. There's around 1.5 trillion in debt in that sector that will soon hit maturity and will need to be refinanced. But interest rates are now higher and banks are pulling on lending. That could produce a boatload of distressed commercial properties, leading prices to crash as much as 40% per an estimate from Capital Economics. I personally find the idea of paying less for things really enticing, but I also understand that this economy is built on inflation. So just one thing to watch out for: if deflation does materialize, it might not be good for real estate. Next, we have an interesting rift opening up between existing home sales and new home sales. Housing continues to be the tale of two markets in July. Existing sales remained near their lowest annual rate since 2009, while new home sales are hovering near the 2019 high of the pre-pandemic business cycle. We expect that new home sales will continue to outperform relative to existing homes as existing homeowners remain locked into their low mortgage rates and thus more hesitant to move. So I'm interested to know your thoughts on this. Are you more attracted to new homes or existing homes? Let me know in the comments below. Now let's try piece all this information together and summarize the market as it exists in September 2023. The big news is that sales seem to be coming back. They're not back to where they were, but those big old gears do seem to be turning slowly and coming back to life. We continue to see home prices hold steady and not budge at all despite record high mortgage rates. In terms of Spokane specifically, sales are down here and inventory remains low. Despite this, median home prices are actually up, which just goes to show how resistant home prices are to falling despite the headwinds they're facing. Lastly, I wanted to go over my experience as a landlord this month renting out a property that I own. For those of you that don't know, I don't manage properties and I don't represent clients for leases. I only deal with leases on my own personal property. So after working on a property for over a year, we did the bathrooms, we did the kitchen, I rented out my 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, and within a week, over 4,000 people had clicked on the listing, about 100 people had saved the listing and shared it with their friends, and I had 25 showings scheduled. At the end of it, I had a lease signed within a week, and I felt like I could have charged more. Why am I telling you this? I wanted to highlight the fact that there are options out there for you as a homeowner if you need to move, for example. If you don't need to sell, that is. If you do need to sell, then yes, you're going to need to enter the market and deal with the market as I've described it before. But if you can wait 6 to 12 months and maybe get a tenant in there in the meantime, so the property isn't costing you anything, the renter market is hot right now and you're not going to struggle to get a tenant in there. That's it for this video. I hope you gained from the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. That does actually help me out. If you're looking at buying in the Spokane area, please give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, and I'd be honored to work with you. Until the next one, my name is Phil Wells, and thank you for watching.